Well, we're here in person at JP Kelly's down at Republican Day at the State Fair with a room full of Republicans. Chris here seems to think that they're all for him, but we know the truth. See, we already got a loud no. We're here on Wednesday as we record this. Republican Day is tomorrow. This is Governor's Day. This is Democrat Day. And we already have one reporter who was complaining that we were trying to steal some of the Democrats' thunder today. So let's steal even more of their thunder, because this is not their state. This is the people's state, and we're going to take it back. So we've got some awesome guests here as we're going to go through the topics of the day. We've got State Senator DeWitte, who's been on before and is one of the best legislators we have in Springfield. Don, glad to have you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be back.
And I hear you were in my favorite state of Alaska just recently.
Just came back from 2 weeks in Alaska. Spectacular trip.
Did you the dog sled with the?
Didn't do the
okay.
dog sled, no.
You just missed Trump and Putin.
Yeah.
Well,
is that why you were actually there?
I got a call. He asked for some help, but I couldn't stay. I had a flight to catch.
See, this is sort of that underground. Like, I know why Don was actually there. He was in on the meeting. He's going to negotiate peace between Russia.
Somebody's got to lay the groundwork.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The great peacemaker. I like it. Yeah. We also have with us Aaron Del Mar, who has a lot of titles. Cook County Republican Chairman. You are former, co-chair of the Republican Party. You're a highway commissioner. What's up, man?
I'm glad to be back. Love to be the diversity hire for the smoke-filled room, so to give a different perspective, and excited to be doing this again.
We checked the box. We're good. And I got my drink, so now we're really good. We also have Michael and Chris. Michael, who's here to share his wisdom. Chris, who's just here to campaign and be selfish.
That's right. Though there are whispers that a challenger to my candidacy has emerged in the state comptroller's race, my team will be monitoring the situation in the Illinois state comptroller's race. We want a clear primary field for the right candidate. That is the goal of my campaign. So everybody stay tuned for the Illinois comptroller's race.
So is there petitions somewhere? Is there...
Listen, a lot of things are moving very rapidly right now. My petitions are in the building, though there are reports of another individual circulating petitions at this very moment. So we're going to find out, who's going to come out on top, and it is most likely not going to be me.
I mean, I want like a cage match style decision here. Like, I think we could sell tickets to this. It could be a fundraiser for the Republican Party. Like,
Make it physical.
I will commit to a cage match style fight if Aaron agrees to be my coach prior to the fight.
You know that I despise physical violence, so you know what I mean.
Michael, you going to stand for this? You going to be all right with it?
Hey, we'll see what happens. I already signed the petition, but I might revoke my signature here.
Typical politician's answer, typical party chairman answer. The wavering alliances are always at play here. The grassroots conservatives know what's right.
All right, let's get into our first couple topics. As we're here talking through Republican politics, we've got to take stock on where we are. And one of the things we've heard over and over, not from people here, because if they made the drive to Springfield, they're in, they care, they're part of the team. But I know all throughout the state, there's a lot of Republicans who are feeling a little bit hopeless. So now's the time to talk about where's the hope in our party? Why should people be feeling motivation? Why should they be looking to 2026 as an election we can actually make an impact? We've talked about it. Pritzker's vulnerable. There's opportunities. But right now I'm getting that sense from Republicans around the state that they're not fighting as hard as they could. Bring some hope here. And I want to look at our guest first.
Well, I think it's because it's early on, right? Petitions just opened up, and everybody expected this giant bubble that as soon as petition season opens and it's the first day, that all the candidates would be aligned and ready to go. And there's still some trading of positions that are happening. We see a great candidate for comptroller. I know there's another one that's already passing petitions earlier today from Southern Illinois. We have some contested governor's races. I see a candidate for governor and lieutenant governor out there. Yep. Word on the street is that there's 2 more announcements going to be made for governor. Somebody yesterday announced John Thomas, not familiar with them, even though they're from our neck of the woods, Collin. Yeah. So we don't know who the dark horses are. And I think we have a couple other spots that are undecided. I think there's some questions of who's going to run for Secretary of State. Are we going to see another perennial candidate for Attorney General? And what are we doing with some of our other county board races as well as state rep, state senate spots? After we kind of get those people in line and the petitions are finalized and we're starting to make forward and we have total ballot security, I think that's when the real excitement and energy is going to come, because now we know what our team is. The fighting is kind of surpassed a little bit and we're ready to move ahead full steam go.
All right, I like that.
Sure.
What do you think, Doug?
I think there's a couple of reasons why Republicans should be buoyed this year by this political season. Number one, we saw significant gains in the last cycle Everyone knows President Trump picked up 10 points, which is significant in a state like Illinois. And that helped a lot of races, a lot of Republican races. Most importantly, we held most of our seats in the legislature. Everyone knows that J.B. Pritzker is not running for governor. He is simply running this campaign as a platform for his presidential wishes. I think that's a very dangerous position to take. Everyone talks about a governor's third term. In this case, I think he's very vulnerable. You've got multiple candidates in the controller's race. You've got the President of the Senate, Speaker of the House, running against each other for state committeeman positions. I believe the Democratic Party is in a state of turmoil right now. They have no real leadership. They have a very weak bench. I think they are extremely vulnerable in this next upcoming cycle.
All right, I like that. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm going to be optimistic by way of being pessimistic. And here's the thing about the state of Illinois, everybody. The state of Illinois is not in good shape right now. It's not. After years and years of failed leadership, be it from the Democratic Party or even some people in the Republican Party when they were governor, the state of Illinois is in very bad financial status.
Subtle, Chris. That was a very subtle runner reference.
Well, very subtle, very subtle. But is he here right now, Collin? No, so I don't think he's going to be too mad. But the state of Illinois' finances are in bad shape. The state's government continues to be incompetent. And as long as the state government continues to be an incompetent mess, it gives an opening for the Republican Party. Now, the Republican Party has to take advantage of that. They need to run good campaigns. The energy needs to come back within the party. But when in the vacuum of effective leadership in the state of Illinois, the Republican Party can rise. And the second reason I think there's hope for optimism is that the Democratic Party isn't very good at campaigning. They aren't. They get lucky because the Republican Party really hasn't put up a good enough fight in recent years, and they've ran into certain factors that have hurt the Republican Party. But if the Republican Party and its candidates can learn to run effective statewide and district-level campaigns, then there are opportunities for the Republican Party. But still, that's a lot of ifs, everyone.
Michael, you usually are optimist. What do you got?
Well, I think, we saw the poll this last week that had Pritzker underwater for the first time ever, right? A majority of Illinoisans have a negative opinion of him.
That was an IPI poll, though, wasn't it, Butler?
And I think a lot of that, though, is motivated by him running for president, because you've seen this in other states where Ron DeSantis ran for president and was unsuccessful in this last election, and you saw some of the polling in Florida that was not good for him. So that creates a big liability for Pritzker if he's traveling the country, speaking about these federal issues, trying to get in fights with Trump as often as he can, because he thinks that's going to get him more attention, and I think that leads people to kind of sour on him. So I think that creates an opportunity. We've talked a lot on this podcast about some of the problems at the state level, whether it's IDNR, DCFS, the list goes on and on of his problems. So I think that creates a lot of opportunities. And I think, we've talked about some of the candidates that are, running for state rep, running for state senate in some of these, tier 1, tier 2 races. And it's a very different approach than what we've seen in the past, which I think will help.
Collin, I wanted to highlight on something both of you guys said. One thing that I think we really need within the Republican Party here, especially in Illinois, is that we have to stop running traditional campaigns. Just doing flyers, just doing mailers, just doing some social media and text messages is not going to get it done anymore, right? Going on regular full-time television is not enough anymore. We have to run unconventional, exciting campaigns. And the other thing that I don't think anyone's talked about on your podcast in a while is we need to stop letting the millionaires and billionaires in this state decide who our candidates are and who's going to be in charge. Because right now it's a big proxy war. You have two of the biggest billionaires in Illinois, J.B. Pritzker being one, dictating what happens at the Democratic Party. Then you have the billionaire class of the Republican Party who are deciding who is going to be the top tier candidates, who's going to be the ones in primaries by picking and choosing and flooding them with campaign dollars. And the people here, for whatever issues they have, don't really get a vote. Because when you have the billionaires picking one candidate out of a primary, not listening to the grassroots, and they're targeting people that don't come to state fairs, that don't come to Republican Day, that don't go to Lincoln Day dinners, all they hear is about is one candidate. Our grassroots, good, proven candidates lose. So we as a party need to be the grassroots and push back on that donor class from picking and choosing winners in Illinois on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when we see, Aaron got some applause on that. Only from 2, though, so you're going to have to pay a few more people if you want to get it. Really, the truth, though, is as you see Pritzker's poll numbers come down, It's real. What Don is saying, that Pritzker is more vulnerable than he has ever been. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But you see this vulnerability, and I think if you look at the whole ticket amongst the Democrats, every single one of them is Chicago or Cook County. And if the chips fall a certain way in these primaries, they'll all be from Chicago. There's 101 other counties in Illinois that deserve representation, and they're not getting it from these Democrats who are all from the state of Chicago. And so I think there's all sorts of vulnerabilities you see that Chris is right. There's an if here. If we actually take advantage of them, there are absolutely opportunities for Republicans this cycle that we haven't had in a very long time.
Sure. I think a classic example of that is the U.S. Senate race. I mean, he's got Juliana Stratton running as his candidate. He came out all for her. He was going to push her all the way up the envelope. Excuse me. The last poll I saw, she's almost dead last in the polling. I mean, Raja, a very well-liked moderate Democrat from Schaumburg, seems to have that race well in control. Juliana Stratton's got 2 years in the legislature. That's not much of a political resume to go to Washington, D.C. and make national decisions about the economy or defense. Again, to that weak bench point I made earlier.
You've also seen in the checks that Pritzker usually cuts, he's still cutting them, but at half or a quarter of what he used to. And some of them he's not even cutting. And so you see, Pritzker gets it. His money is not actually unlimited in a national campaign setting, where $10 million he spends here, he's not spending in Carolina or New Hampshire or Iowa. That $10 million, that 20, that 30, that 40, he's thinking for himself. And so this next cycle, you're going to see, sure, they'll have some Pritzker bucks, but nowhere near what they've had before.
Part of Raja, he started out with $19 million advantage versus any other candidate in the race. On top of that, he started coming out with more of his marketing and advertising right now, where everybody else is just trying to get money on their pocket. He just came out with a $500,000 ad buy on major television. So he's going out and defining each of the other candidates before they even have a time to respond, which is the exact same thing that the Illinois Republican Party and our candidates need to do, is saying, hey, this is what this person is now in August, instead of waiting until February when nobody's paying attention.
Well, that's what I've preached for a long time, is that old school mentality that maybe worked in the 1990s, maybe in the 2000s, doesn't work today. That idea of sock away every penny and then drop it in TV ads in the final 6 or 8 weeks and some mailings. It doesn't work. Like, we have to be doing guerrilla style tactics and be defining our opponents now, pushing back now, because as you said, a lot of these races are lost by next August if we don't get out there and fight now.
Even more important than that is the Democrats have so much more money than the Republican Party. They're going to raise the cost of all the media more than it has ever been before.
And they'll bury us in August, September, October, whereas now we can actually compete and get that message out. Times have changed. Politics have changed, and still some of our politicos are kind of in that old school mentality, but we got to get with how you win elections in 2025 and 2026.
Just think about where the Democratic Party would be today if J.B. Pritzker hadn't been around for the last 3 or 4 cycles. He's been the entire checkbook. Yeah, they've had significant donations from labor and all their other environmentalists and all their other favorite groups.
But if you look at a lot of the individual races, if it wasn't for Pritzker, Republicans would have outraised the Democrats.
Kind of like when Rauner left Illinois and moved back to Florida, left Illinois Republican Party left without anything, because we were so used to getting it from Big Daddy Rauner, we didn't know how to feed ourselves. And the second he left and went back to Florida, we're like, we can't fend for ourselves, and we don't know what to do.
That's absolutely happening to Democrats right now, for sure. And you start to see a little bit, I know Chris and Michael were talking about this, like the Teamsters nationally starting to give more to Republicans. Like, if they're going to rely, once Pritzker's gone, their only money source is unions. And if they can't even rely on that in the coming years, they're going to be in big trouble.
Well, I think Pritzker's really taken his eye off the ball, right? He was a bad enough governor already, but now that he's distracted by all, his federal aspirations, and he thinks he's going to be our next president, like, it's only going to get worse. And you see that even like the national news media, Stephen Colbert and people like that are pushing back against Pritzker. And this is the first time that he's had that, it's like, he's, minor league baseball and he's trying to play in the major leagues, and it's like he's just getting, what do you think about IL-17? How can you justify that? And he's like, kindergartners drew it. It's like, how do you think that Welch and Harmon think about being called kindergartners? Because they're the ones that drew that map.
I like your minor league analogy. It's like he was in AAA in a hitter's park, just knocking them out over and over because it was easy, and then he gets to the majors in a 400, a big giant, like Detroit, go to their stadium where you can't hit home runs. Or he just plays for the White Sox.
The White Sox are a better team since the All-Star heartbreak than Chicago Cubs. That's for the record. Look it up, folks.
All right, Chris, close us out on this topic so we can go to the next one.
Well, I just want to say, for a long time, I've advocated that a better Republican Party actually creates a better Democratic Party. Because if you have an effective Republican Party in the state of Illinois, it actually holds the Democrats' feet to the fire and moderates them and convinces them to run better government. Now, are they going to run a great government? No, they're Democrats. Of course they're not. But when when the Democrats think they are invincible, which Democrats in this state do, and J.B. Pritzker thinks he is, then they're going to do whatever the hell they want to the state of Illinois, and they don't think there's any consequences. The Republican Party wants a chance at viability. It is time for them to hold the Democrats' feet to the fire, to call them out on the things that they believe they have done wrong to this state. And if the Republican Party does not do that, it cannot expect itself to win, and it can't expect there to be a better state of Illinois as a result.
Chris, what you're talking about is why I feel really positive about the controller's race. I'm glad Don said it right. Comptroller, it's actually controller, but nobody ever says it that way. But you think about Illinois was best. Even Democrats admit it. Even media in Chicago admits it. When there was a Republican controller to actually give that check and balance to the whoever the governor was, whoever was leading down in Springfield, which is mostly Democrats. I think a lot of people are going to agree that regardless of how you vote in all the other races, we need a Republican in that controller position to actually be a check and balance, because that's the conservative position. That the whole job description for that position is more conservative by nature.
But who even knows what a comptroller even does? We have to go and educate people on what the issues are and what that job's details really are. Because if you ask anybody that's in here, I bet you 6 out of 10 don't even know what that is, or who the previous comptroller who decided not to run is either, right? We as a Republican Party do a horrible job of messaging that needs to change now, because we just capitulate on every issue. We say that it's too hard. We're outfunded. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the precinct committeemen. We need to stop the whining, and we need to get a helmet and get in the game.
Yeah, I like it. All right, let's go to our next topic. This is similar, but obviously right now we're in campaign season and we're trying to recruit candidates. I know the caucuses are recruiting for rep seats and for Senate seats. I know obviously a lot of us are trying to recruit for statewide candidates. And we're hearing a lot of, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I want to do it. So my question to the group is this. What do we need to do so we start getting yeses more than we get nos when we're having those conversations? What can we do to make it a more attractive proposition for that individual to say, sure, I'll run for controller. Sure, I'll run for state senate. I'll run for county board or judge. What can we do so that we start seeing more success on the recruitment side?
You want to go first? I got
sure.
you when you're ready.
Sure, I can jump in. I think it's true. I think what most candidates are going to be looking for is a concerted effort by the entire party to be able to float the entire flotilla, the entire group of boats. The proverbial rising tide floats all boats. I think that helps every candidate, whether they're running for governor, state rep, senate, dog catcher. I don't care what the race is. Mm-hmm. If there's not a concerted effort by the party to make every race stronger and better, I'm very fortunate in my own particular district. We now have 3 what I believe to be very strong candidates that appear to be coming out to run for my Senate seat. We may very well have a 3-way primary the way it looks right now. So I'd like to say it's because I've left a fairly clean plate for them to walk into. I'm leaving some great relationships I've made here in Springfield. Excuse me, fighting a cold, but I think it's that concerted effort that's going to convince people now may be the right time to jump in as a Republican in a statewide race or a legislative race.
But I think what you're doing too helps build a bench. We've talked about it the last few episodes, that we get these policymakers who get in. Listen, I hate to lose you. I've said it on record, I hate to lose you. But honestly, part of our struggle to build a bench in Illinois is people get in and park. Right. And so there is something noble about what you're doing that lets that next group, that next generation to build up their name ID. You know, if we do more of this, we might actually build a bench in the party. So
I think we've done a much better job building a bench than the Democrats have, frankly. I've said all along, I think they have a very weak bench. There's nobody waiting in the wings. When you have 5 people running for comptroller, that's having nobody ready to step in and take over that race.
Interesting.
Do you know how you know the comptroller is able to win? When you get 5 or 6 people that are running for that office.
Right.
The reason he's got 3 people that are running for his seat is because it's a Republican-drawn district, and they have a pretty good, better than 50% chance of winning and holding that district.
It's true.
We need to do 3 things in the Illinois Republican Party in general to be able to get better candidates. Number 1 is we got to stop lying to people. We have to say, hey, look, you're going to run for office. We're going to be able to give you some lawn signs. We're going to give you some lit pieces. We're going to do your website. We'll help you with messaging. But then you need to go out and you need to fundraise and you need to do all the rest of it. Too many times we go and recruit candidates and then we leave them just hanging. We're like, okay, you got me, I'm going to run. And then we don't give them any resources. We don't give them any direction. We don't give them any campaign apparatus. And then they're like, I just got crushed. The party did nothing for me. They tell everybody that nobody else wants to do it the next time because they just saw what you did to that guy, right? You just left him hanging, number 1.
So in recruitment, you obviously telling them what they want to hear increases your odds that they'll run. But to your point, if you can't deliver them what you told them, it increases the odds that they never run again.
Not only run again,
So
they leave the party and they don't go to more events and then they soil it for everybody else.
So in our recruitment efforts, it's important to get them to get in, but also be honest with them about what they can. Yeah, okay.
Number 2 is that we need to start getting candidates that aren't vanity candidates, that are just perennial. They run after run after run and they just get polished and everyone's so polite and nice to them and they're like, and they just like to run because they like to go around and take selfies and be on social media and hand out their flyers and like, I'm a candidate, yeah, take a picture with me.
I'm just making sure we've got you on camera saying this,
right.
Aaron.
You know what? The only races that I get involved in are races that I think I can win. You can put that on there, right? And on races that I've only been on myself, I've never lost because I don't get involved in a fight that I don't think I can win, you know, with a better than 50% chance. And so you get these vanity candidates and then nobody does anything about it. They're like, oh, our buddy Jim is running again. Not picking on any specific Jim, because there's a couple, right? And nobody does anything. Yeah. We need to start blocking and tackling out bad candidates and weed them out so it gives us space and an opportunity for really good candidates because they're like, why are we in a primary of this guy that's been running 7 times and has not even gotten more than 20% of the vote?
Or a certain person who runs for judge every cycle and no one else can,
exactly.
And no one else can get in.
Out, right? The people have spoken. You ran twice. You're not for 4
or 5 times.
You're not
for whatever reason.
You're not electable.
The electorate says you're not the guy.
Yep.
And number 3 is that we have to have.
Well, you know what? I want to just real quick. We've had a couple people on the podcast who have said that straight up. Like I know Andrew Chesney has gotten a little bit of beef, and I get that there's some battles. But he came on our podcast and said, "I'm not the guy. I'm not an electable statewide candidate." Honestly, I give him a lot of credit for that, and we've had a few others who have said it, like that I'm not the person because I don't fit a statewide profile or whatever it is. So I do think you've seen some people who have done that and said, you know what? As much as my ego wants me to be supreme potentate of the universe, the reality is I'm not the person for that. And I think to your point, the more people who can set aside their ego and say, I'm better helping elect a Lee who's in the room or whoever else, and Abby, I can get them elected. I should step back and let them run. That is really going to help us grow as a party if we can put ego aside.
And they need help with that process. Somebody needs to tell them, look, there are other opportunities you may be able to look at down the road. But we need to win this race. Primaries do nothing but spend money and waste energy. There's nothing left by the time the general rolls around. We do need strength at the party level, at the upper end of the party level, to be able to make those calls.
We need some of these people to get behind Chris, help him out, give him advice, because he needs all the help he can get.
Number three is this. We have to have realistic expectations and goals for every candidate, right? Running against J.V. Pritzker is going to be a heavy lift, and accept the pun, right? It's a joke, but it's not. So what is our real goal, right? We go and we run against J.V. Pritzker. We should have a candidate that's going to go and punch and punch and punch and shine light on everything that he does wrong. Now, even if that doesn't get him to be the next governor, because we all try and it doesn't make the numbers, it might be saving the rest of the country from having him as the next president, because nobody did that to Barack Obama, and then he became our president. We need to be punching now and attacking now. On top of that,
and to this point, I just want to point out, I had a conversation with a member of the Chicago media who said, I am constantly looking for a Republican to quote whenever Pritzker, pun intended, I guess, whenever Pritzker makes a claim, I got nobody I can call. Can you guys give me somebody? That's my frustration. But that's my frustration is if we have a campaign that's going to go after Pritzker, every time he opens his mouth, there should be a press release waiting in the media's inbox that says, here's why he's lying, here's why he's wrong. I can be available for an interview right now. Let's go. Like, we got to fight.
But the value of that is twofold. One is that we punch and maybe we save the rest of the country. But number 2 is one of the most important elections that we're going to have is in 2030. that is when the remap is. If we can punch Pritzker and Democrats so hard during this cycle, whoever takes one for the team but goes down swinging, who has the energy, the focus, and the desire to move forward, the next person that runs can pick up that momentum and continue through. And then if we can block the redistricting and we can look at the way that we do the maps, we could have generational change in Illinois for the next 10 years.
It's not hyperbole to say that if we don't win in 2030 as Republicans, we are basically done in this state. That is not hyperbole. And so this idea, we'll talk about it in our next topic, that we must be building these next 3 cycles because this is it. Like, fight for these next few cycles, and if you want to leave Illinois, go for it. But at this point, this is basically, I believe this is our last chance to save our state, and it's going to be these next 3 cycles. We got to fight for it. These guys have been begging to come in.
So look, I'm gonna be optimistic here. I'm gonna say something that Collin is not gonna like maybe. The key to making a candidate want to run is to make Republican politics appealing and make it fun. Like, we're all in this because we believe in the state of Illinois, we believe in Republican politics, we're conservative, whatever, but you know what politics is? It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be...
It's a social club for people with limited social skills.
That's
That
right.
is politics.
That's right. That's why this is my career, because of those factors. But if we can make Republican politics worth doing, if we could show an active Republican Party that has Lincoln Day dinners, that has joint events, fundraisers, all these types of these things that the party can do.
To your point, also things at bars and at fun events. Like, we all do the Lincoln Day dinner, the monthly business meeting with the speaker. Okay, fine. But the average member of the public, the average person out there, they're not coming to that. But you have an event at the bar during a debate or even during a baseball game. Now they might come to that. Like, how about actual fun instead of just the Lincoln Day dinners or whatever else it might be?
What made Republican politics so effective in parts of the suburbs and the entire state was that the Republican Party wasn't just a bunch of old guys who got together and talked about the tax code. It was a social club for members of the community to get together and talk about what makes their community great and how they can fix where they live. And that's trademark. I don't care, Steve Ballich. I don't care. But like this is what we need to do. We need to make Republican politics fun again, or else nobody's going to want to run because you're not doing anything. You're just boring. Oh yeah, I get to listen to some guy talk about why the state of Illinois is in debt. Wow, I already knew that, guys. Let's do something fun.
Yeah, well, we can learn from people even if we don't necessarily always agree with them. I want to look back to the 2010s. The name Joe Walsh. Listen, I know today I don't want to talk about him. Nobody wants to talk about him. But if you think back when he was running for office and when he was in office for the 5 minutes he was there, he created this sort of social environment. They did events in his barn. They lit off fireworks. They created this sort of family feel where people felt like they were part of something. And I do think we've lost a bit of that. I think you're right. I don't ever want to say that again in public that Chris was right on something.
We lost that because we kept on going. We went back to the same people. We're like, hey, this person was in the library board. This person's on the Chamber of Commerce, and they're boring. Nobody wants to watch them. They look like they came out of a scene from Cocoon, because that's how old they are, waiting by the pool, waiting to die. We need to find unique people that bring a unique perspective, that are going to engage, energize, and excite the base, so people have something to follow. If you're not leading, no one's following you. You're just a guy on a walk. Yeah. We have to go and get some power.
Yeah. All right, close us out on this, Michael. Go ahead.
Well, I think Aaron's absolutely right. We got to look for those unique candidates that are energized, that are exciting, think outside the box, because the stale, approach that we've been taking for the last 10 years obviously hasn't worked.
We've covered what was supposed to be our next topic. We've already kind of covered, so I'm going to keep us moving for time. Let's talk about this. The next topic after this, we get to start going after Pritzker. But last one, talking about us as Republicans, I want to ask a simple question. What does it mean to be a Republican in Illinois? We've talked about this a number of times on the podcast. Until we have a brand, until we could go to these people who are walking behind us on the street right now and say, hey, here's what it means to be a Republican. Until we can answer that question, I don't know when we can ever win. I understand I'm a branding guy, I'm a marketing guy, so of course this is my perspective. But when I ask average Republicans like in the room, precinct committee people, elected officials, and I say, hey, what does it mean to be a Republican? I've yet to find someone who can actually answer that question. And we're the leaders of the party, supposedly. If we can't do it, no one can do it. And so that's my question to us is, number one, what does it mean to be a Republican? And how can we start to convey that to the voters?
We need to come up with an identity. And I'm going to pick on you, Don, for a second.
Sure.
For many years, this is what it looked like to be a Republican. right? He looks like a Republican. He walks in, you're like, that guy's probably Republican. He's a good-looking guy. He's got
By the end of this podcast, Don's going to punch out Del Mar, and I can't wait.
But what we need to do is we need to stop that identity side of it. Like, hey, you know, the guy that loved him, he looks like he's a Democrat. He's actually a Republican because he believes in the ideals and the conservative values of good government and best policy and good practices. And we have an identity that's been built for us through the Trump and America First campaign. What we need to do is get the rest of the team on board and saying, hey, look, this is the guy that's leading the nation. You may not like everything he has to say and the way he does it, but he's certainly leading, and he's the first president that I can remember that is doing exactly what he said.
That's a good point. You know, I get that question regularly about, what kind of a Republican are you? To your point, depending on who you ask and which part of the state, you're going to get a different answer. Mm-hmm. I was raised a Reagan Republican. I try to keep my Republican values very simple. Less government involvement in your business, less government involvement in your personal life, and less taxes for everyone. For everyone, not just the middle class, the upper class, for everyone. Basic values. It served Ronald Reagan and that entire generation of Republicans very well. George H.W. Bush. It's always been kind of a moderate social position. Reagan's comment with Tip O'Neill about just because you disagree with someone doesn't make you their enemy. I think people have had to learn. My success in Springfield has been learning to moderate on the issues that you can moderate on without giving up those basic values of being a Republican. Less government involvement in your life or business, less tax.
But I think that's what we seem to miss, is having central values that we can build around, so that what that looks like in maybe a Southern Illinois district might be different than what it looks like in your district. But the idea is if it's a central theme, if we have central values and principles that we don't, as Republicans, we don't ever break these, then it gives that flexibility locally where someone might say, listen, if it's less government, whatever it is, someone put this in place, whatever it might be, if it's less government, that might look like something in Highland Park that's different than what it might look like in Geneva, which is different than what it might look like in Carbondale. And the idea is you give the party a theme they can work off. But we're always so focused on like a set of issues, and the issues are always different in every district, and so you can't always align, that with every single issue. But a theme, if there's that, like Reagan, it was a theme. It was this idea of limited government, personal responsibility, strong national defense. Those aren't really issues. Those are thematic, foundational principles.
But is it the Reagan tone? Because if you look at Donald Trump, he has very similar concepts to Ronald Reagan, but he's on amphetamines, right? He's like, we're going to have immigration. We're going to have tough on immigration. We're going to go grab everybody, and we're taking them back to their own country. We want limited government. We're firing everybody. We're cleaning house. We're tired of China. We're going to go put tariffs on that.
Part of the reason Chicago is lagging in their jobs performance is because all the federal government workers that have been fired in Chicago. So you're right. I mean, he's just cutting them off.
He's got the same concept, the same Republican values and goals that we have. We're like, hey, we are a pro-life, God-fearing party. Right. And we're like, all right, we're going after abortion. We're going after these issues. People don't like the style, and they don't like the tone.
Right. But there's a central theme he works from. And you look at some of these other states. We've talked about Florida in the past. Like, we're the most free state in the country. That's their thing. Yeah. It gives you a central. Every brand, every company in the history of businesses that have ever been successful had that. A mission statement, a theme, a brand. If we can create that here in Illinois, you can excite people in the room. They can all unite around it. We just go up to these Lincoln Day dinners and say, everybody unify. That's it. Everybody unify. It doesn't work. Right. Give me something to unify behind. Give me something to get excited about. Sure. Don't just preach to me that I've got to unify. What am I unifying for? Tell me.
That's a Trump train rolling into Springfield right now.
What do you guys got?
I mean, I think the big shift in the past, 8 years is that we really have become the party of working families. That, we care about, we're tough on crime, like creating opportunities for people, through the economy, lower taxes, things of that nature, energy. I mean, you see what Pritzker and the Dems have done to energy prices in this state. That directly impacts working families. And you've seen that shift, it used to be the party of the country club, and we would dominate the suburbs. Now it's the party of working families, and now we dominate places like Granite City and Collinsville and Caseyville. So there's been a big change, and we have to recognize that and don't run away from it, lean into it, because there's even a lot of communities up in that Chicagoland area that have been trending our direction. Look at Trump's performance in Chicago. in this last election.
certain wards, for sure.
Certain wards, like, don't run from it, lean into it.
I agree. Like, and what the relation to what Butler says, and kind of merging what kind of the old guard of Republican politics is saying and what the new guard of Republican politics is saying. I was pointing at Del Mar, actually, Collin, but what to kind of and with a Hegelian synthesis of two different types of thought, we need a working government, an efficient government for working people. That's what the Republican brand needs to be. We could talk about government austerity. We could talk about, rooting out corruption and all those sorts of things. But it's for the betterment of the working class people of the state of Illinois. And we are going to advance governmental policies that actually benefit people instead of taking things away from them, perhaps.
This is all great in concept, but we're not doing that. Take a look at the candidates that have announced in Illinois already, and it's the same group that we're saying that needs to change, right? You got the same people. The guy just decided to run for Senate today, 75 years old, white guy, right? Deciding to run again because he's going to reunite the party. Never going to happen. We need to take the concepts that we're talking about here and actually apply them. Because guess what? Everyone that's running right now on our ticket is either funded by a billionaire or a millionaire themselves.
Listen, I am not. That's a lie. I am not funded by any billionaires. I am not funded by any millionaires. If there are any billionaires or millionaires out there, I will give you my business card. You are welcome to fund my campaign.
Everyone's wondering why Chris is yelling. I'm not even funding him, let alone the millionaires and billionaires.
I was going to make one last point if I could.
I think with everyone calling you old, you get to speak anytime.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Collin. I really saw the Republican Party during the last presidential cycle really start to kind of moderate, because I don't think people are going to start believing in that concept until we see the highest leaders of our party do it. Donald Trump came out and told people anti-abortion will not win elections for Republicans, and he's absolutely right. In some districts it might, but statewide and nationally, it won't work. I was a Nikki Haley delegate. Nikki Haley came out publicly and said we have to stop demonizing women regarding this issue. It can no longer become the litmus test for valid Republican candidates. They have to start moderating to the social trends in this country. And once the highest levels of our leaders start doing that, I believe that will affect people in statewide and lower level legislative.
Don, let me ask you this question. You say it should not be a litmus test that somebody should have this position on abortion or what have you. But the way you make it sound is that should the litmus test for candidacy now be the willingness to moderate on abortion for them to be an effective candidate?
In Illinois? No question.
So you don't think it would be viable for someone with a pro-life policy position at all to run for statewide office?
Ask Aaron Bailey how it worked out.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. He only lost by 20 points?
It was less.
Well, 12 statewide. Well, look at his numbers north of I-80. They were horrendous.
I think the point is I want to keep us on track.
Yeah.
We're sort of staying positive. I appreciate the thought, and I certainly get what you're saying. I think the point overall is if we can create a theme that we can all get around that isn't issue-based, then it does allow for some understanding of flexibility. That maybe in this district, somebody who is a little bit more moderate on a life issue would play better. Than this district, we want the most conservative candidate we can get because it's a deep red district. And I think understanding that a big tent party means a big tent.
Sure.
I think the problem lately, to Chris's point, is that one side says, well, I want a big tent only if it looks like my part of the party. And then this side says, I want a big tent, but only if it looks like my side of the party. And I think what Chris was hinting at is that some of those people who preach the moderation that you're talking about are trying to push out the social conservatives out of the party, and yet there is a big state here where that actually is a viable position.
No question. Your point is absolutely valid. Are there people who are anti-abortion in this state? Absolutely. I'm anti-abortion. I have never believed abortion should be the first option for a woman. But the Democrats in this state have swung
All right, we got to get some more booze flowing. This is good.
Has swung that pendulum so far the other direction to the point where a 13-year-old girl, without even having to ask her parents, she needs an abortion because she got carried away one night.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I was kind of leaning into Collin's point of like, if we're going to be a big tent party, we have to let people with those voices into the party. We can't look at them like they have leprosy if somebody believes in, the pro-life position.
Sure.
I disagree. I think we need to be a big tent, but I don't think everybody should be invited. I think that we need to get people on the tent that want to win, that want to be productive, that want to move the ball down the field, and that we have common goals and infrastructure too. Because we start letting in everybody in this tent, we're like, we're going to listen to everybody, nothing ever gets done. Right? And then you get people contradicting all of our issues. You get your bloggers, all these other crazy.
Aaron wants a benevolent dictatorship. That's what he's hoping for here.
You know what? Here's the thing. You can say a lot about this. We need to have strong leaders that will engage with people, that will compromise. But we also need leaders that are going to call people. I mean, if you look at Jesus, he's the same. He's going to be love everybody, but he'll also flip over the table when it's necessary.
And you cannot talk out of both sides of your mouth. You cannot be pro-life and then sign HB 40 to allow public funds to be spent on abortions in this state. That didn't work out so well for our friend
That's why he's now living in Florida.
That's exactly right.
You want to be happy about what he just said?
Take a position and stand by it.
Be happy about it, then we'll move on to the next topic.
I'm happy about it. I didn't really have to say I was happy about it, but I'm happy about it.
I'm just saying, we don't have one camera here, so unless you say anything, Lane's not going to get you on camera.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
All right, let's go to our next topic. Let's talk Pritzker. We have got a governor candidate here. Thanks to Jim Mendrick for stopping by. Let's talk about Pritzker in the race, because this is the most vulnerable I have ever seen J.B. Pritzker. We've talked about some of the reasons for it, but let's really dive into it here in this topic. Michael brought up the poll that was taken that shows just how vulnerable Pritzker is. We've seen on key issues that resonate with the voters, like DCFS. I mean, the most vulnerable of our residents are being left behind, and in some cases are dying because of Pritzker's incompetence as a leader in the state, let alone his split focus wanting to run for president. You see the fraud and the corruption in his administration that he just doesn't care about at all. You see them running a whole slate of Chicago/Cook County candidates, which doesn't play in the other 101 counties. You see the lack of his willingness to spend on this when he wants to spend it on president. Pick your reasons. This is the most vulnerable Pritzker has been. And here's the key. Michael said it. Pritzker's going on national media right now and getting called out. He's so used to being coddled by the Chicago media, by the Illinois media, who has kissed his butt for the last 6 years. Suddenly he shows up on national media and they're like, you're a giant hypocrite. And they're pointing it out to his face, and you can see him stammer and struggle because he's not used to it. He's not ready for it. And it's shining a spotlight on the failures of Illinois. And I think the more Pritzker runs for president, the more that spotlight is going to get brighter and brighter on the failures of Democrats and Pritzker in this state, which creates absolute opportunities for us statewide. So that's a lot of an intro for me. Thank you for the applause. I appreciate it. What do you guys think about this?
You know, if I jump in first, Here's the deal. You just hit it on the head. He's a hypocrite, right? If you're talking about gerrymandering the maps, he's like, we're going to change our maps. We have the most gerrymandered maps in Illinois across the country, right? Voted by independent groups saying that we are an absolute F. But more than that, he talks about the most vulnerable. He's the person protecting the most vulnerable people in Illinois. But he's not. If you look at what he's doing, if you look at taking away the grocery tax that he says that it's just a redistribution to local taxes they're going to raise, it's a recessive tax.
Right.
If you look at his tax on services, if you're going to Home Depot to rent a carpet cleaner, right, it's now 10.5% more expensive. The rest of us, we're going and getting a group to come in and clean it, right? If you go and look at the gas tax that he doubled up and added on to,
which is double taxed.
Right.
Yep.
That's double tax.
Which, by the way, they're now talking about, I just read today on Wednesday as we're recording this, they're talking about how the surcharge that they're gonna add to all the bets that Illinois sports bettors make, that Illinois will likely tax that, which is now a double tax. They're taxing a tax. This is Illinois. We don't just tax you, we tax the tax that we tax you.
But what I was saying is this, like, I'm fortunate enough, if gas is $3.25, $1.25, or $7.75, I'm filling up my tank.
Especially
right?
in the Hummer, right? You
Especially in the Hummer.
Yeah.
But to the point is, there's the most vulnerable that he's talking about. They got $20, $25 to fill. That's all they got.
Yep.
Then they're going to go refill later on. That tax is hurting them a lot more than it's hurting me, right? Our property taxes that are punitive. You buy something, you work your life to be able to pay for your number one biggest asset, and then they pound you every year and every month on your taxes. These things are what are driving not just the millionaires and billionaires like Ken Griffin out of the state, who left a $23 million hole when he left because we don't get his income tax anymore in our great state, but regular people that are just trying to get by with one or two jobs are leaving the state because they can't afford gasoline, they can't afford groceries, they can't afford these items. And these are the people that he's saying that he's protecting.
Yep.
He's a liar.
Yep.
They're leaving for the weather, Aaron.
Right.
That's what we keep being told.
That's their line,
It's all just the weather. Don't worry
Look
about
at Stephen Colbert played him like a Stradivarius the other night, and he didn't even realize it. And he came up with the lamest response to that question about the map I could have thought of. You touched on a lot of the major points. The incompetence going on at the Capitol just 3 blocks from here. billions of dollars in excess workers' comp, where all of the rules were absolutely removed from the qualifying process. Highest property tax rate in the nation. Second highest unemployment rate in the nation. We are digging the hole deeper and deeper. Democrats don't know how to put the shovel down, which is what you've got to do if you're digging a hole. And it only gets worse every year. They passed one $1.4 billion tax increase in this year's budget. They damn near passed another $1 billion tax increase with the infamous pizza tax, the delivery tax that everybody ordering online for a pizza, prescription drugs, groceries was going to end up paying. Oh, but the city of Chicago is exempted because the majority of those deliveries are all made by bikes. And because they're environmentally sensitive, they get exempted. It's nonsense.
Well, that's why I kind of like Aaron's idea of having a fighter as somebody who's running for statewide office, because somebody needs to say that the emperor's not wearing clothes, okay? One of Darren Bailey's biggest mistakes in 2022 is that he got the nomination with a lot of energy, and then the general election came around, and then everybody, like the rest of the state, really didn't know who he was. And he didn't take the opportunity to say J.B. Pritzker is the emperor and he's not wearing any clothes. And I think if the people of Illinois understood how bad J.B. Pritzker and the Democrats are governing this state, it might actually lead to substantial Republican gains, Trump midterm or not. If the people of Illinois are made aware of the problems, and if the Republican Party can present solutions for those problems, that's a key, folks, then there can be some opportunity to take on Pritzker.
Go back to 2022 in the Bailey race. I want to go back to 2018 in the runner race. The first time Pritzker ran, I was screaming then, Pritzker the hypocrite is an absolute powerful theme and contrast that we can build, because you go back all the way back to then, he was saying that the millionaires and billionaires need to pay their fair share, while he wasn't. While he was hiding his wealth overseas so he didn't have to pay taxes on it, while he was ripping the toilets out of his mansion so he didn't have to pay taxes. There was a theme there. We could have had J.B. Pritzker the hypocrite as a theme since the moment he first announced for governor, which we could be building on today. J.B. Pritzker isn't a hypocrite because he's done a few things the last year or two we disagree with. He has been a hypocrite since the moment he announced he was running for governor back in 2017. Sure. This is central to who he is. You can absolutely hammer him on that, and you should be hammering him on that.
DTS talks about being fair and fair play, but that's total BS. I mean, if you look in 2022, Darren Bailey, you like him, you don't like him, whatever the case may be, he was funded by two different billionaires on opposite sides of the party. He got one from a billionaire in Lake Forest, and then he got $30 million from J.B. Pritzker himself during the Republican primary, so he could be the candidate that J.B. ran against in the general, right? I mean, that is the biggest issue that nobody's talking about. Everyone's like, oh, he didn't get funded by Pritzker. Go look, go online, look. J.B. Pritzker gave $30 million to the Democratic Governors Association, which then in turn spent that on Darren Bailey's primary campaign in 2022. I know it because I was in the middle of that fight.
And then probably saved $60 million in the general.
$60 million in the general against any of the other candidates.
It was smart.
My colleague Jason Plummer predicted that.
He is right. And Jason was right. And I don't like saying that too much.
I understand.
Well, listen,
but that's the case.
The point is we have seen this in Pritzker, and now we fast forward to 2025, 2026. The national environment is going to be different from him. I mean, we've been saying this, me and Chris especially have been saying, there is no way in hell that Pritzker is going to be the nominee for president for the Democrats. But here's the thing, that may feel nice to say. Here's the bad news to the people in this room. If J.B. Pritzker's not the nominee for president of the United States, he's still our governor in Illinois. Like, this is we have got to take him out. You can't rest it. I talked to a Republican this week who was like, it's okay, he's going to run for president. We're almost done with him. I'm like, no, he's going to lose. Thank you to our producer, Lane. Now I'm double fisting. He's going to lose, and we're still going to be stuck with him. We have got to take him out now.
Because Republicans in this state, for whatever reason, view J.B. Pritzker as this, like, political wizard who can do no wrong. Like, that's the reason why the Republicans in this state must be losing. J.B. Pritzker and his billions must just be an unstoppable political force. Well, they're not. He's not, folks.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who J.B. Pritzker is
Look at
outside
how
of the
much
state
he's
of
struggling
Illinois.
in these interviews. Like, he is absolutely not this great polished politician that we thought he was.
Is proving it.
Yeah.
And
The
you
national
gotta
polling for president is proving
he's
it.
not even
You're
polling in the
absolutely right.
top 5 of potential 2028 candidates.
There was a poll that came out of 12 candidates. He didn't even make the list.
Well, no, the Democrats don't like him because they know that if he gets up on stage, there's no room for anybody else.
I mean, but ultimately, this idea, he's trying to defend now billionaires in politics because he's a billionaire in politics. Even on that, he's a giant hypocrite. All right, let's move to the next topic here. We're starting to see some statewide candidates emerge. We've got maybe a candidate here as part of this group. We hear there's maybe a candidate announcing or circulating for comptroller who's not Chris. We have an announcement for Senate, which makes Aaron's head explode, but nobody likes Aaron, so who cares? We've got other candidates who are talking about maybe next week announcing for governor, and they're pulling some support. It seems like finally there may be some movement. It is way too damn late, but finally there's some movement statewide. That gives me a little bit of hope. Are we going to finally see some Republicans step up and fight? Let's start over here on this one. What do you guys got?
You're the announced candidate.
Well, as the only circulating statewide candidate on this podcast, I must say that I am certainly pleased at the opportunity to have other people run statewide with me, because one thing I've learned in the last, 2 weeks of doing this, Collin, week and a half, has been running statewide is hard. So I'm glad other people are taking the opportunity to do so. But no, I think people are kind of like, how daylight savings time happens, and you're like, forget to change your clock back, and then you're running an hour behind the rest of the day. That's what this petition season's like. Everybody's internal clock has been on, I don't need to start getting petitions until after Labor Day. That's what time it is every other year. It's like, no, petition started last week, guys. You should have announced already. You actually should have announced a couple months ago, gotten some momentum, build a campaign team.
Here's what you got to understand, because you're 100% right, but I was talking to our buddy Lee Arellano about this. In the more rural areas of the state, the precinct captains, precinct committeemen, they get the petition packets and they go out and they knock on doors and they get their signatures in the first month. Most of our people in politics are so used to, we're used to, at least us up here, you can get those petition signatures at train stations, at the Jewel, at the library. But when it comes to the more rural areas, they got to go out and bust their butts to knock on these doors. So they go out in the first month to do that. And if you're a candidate in month 2 or 3 who says, hey, could you please pass my petition? They're done. They're like, seriously, you want me to go out a second time to all these houses in my precinct? So it's not just about everything you said is true, but Lee gave me something that I hadn't thought of that I wanted to share.
He actually told me the same thing about an hour before he told you, Collin, so you're actually stealing my thunder on that one.
Good.
But no, it's good that because here's, when you have a lot of candidates, it builds momentum for the party. Yes, there will be nasty primaries. People will say things about other candidates that might not be good for the party. But you know what? Having primaries and having a lot of announced candidates creates infrastructure that creates energy amongst the grassroots of this state. So yes, Collin, I do think it's a good thing that finally people are announcing for statewide office.
Here, go ahead.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
I ran for statewide office in 2022, so I feel like I have a little bit.
And you're considering?
I'm considering,
still?
yeah, I certainly am considering, and here's why. If you want to just run and you want to have an editor tour and you want to just go out there and get your selfies and pictures and do all that stuff, right, you're not a real serious candidate. If you really want to run and you want to do it to win, or you want to do it to move the party forward and be selfless and take one for the team, move the ball to the, to the red zone, you have to think about these things, and you have to look at the values of what you're going to do, the impacts on your life, the impact on your family's life, and what does that look like? Everyone's like, we should run. That's not a real candidate.
Yeah.
I'm looking at running for governor, but what am I looking at? Do I want to spend the next 15 months of my life doing this? Do I want to go through 6 months fighting with 4 other guys, having people throw rocks at me on social media and the mailers and all the rest of this nonsense?
When you have a beautiful wife back home.
I got a beautiful family.
6 kids, right?
I got 6 kids. I got a great thing. I got a good business. I'm making a few bucks finally in my life and my career that I'm doing all right. And then do I want to go into a general and have J.B. Pritzker sending the Illinois Department of Revenue to my house? Do I want them going there and changing regulation?
Sure.
You know what? Yeah, I'm thinking that I do, but then I look at it. All of a sudden, somebody in Lake Forest decides, you know what? I heard from my gatekeepers that this person's the guy, and they stick $10 million in his account. Never met the guy ever in his life, but that's the guy because the people holding the chains say that's them. And then I got to go spend another $500,000 trying to fight $10 million, win, lose, draw, whatever the case may be. But after that election's over, we still got to live in Illinois unless we're Bruce Rauner and move out.
Right.
So it's not easy just to say and go, why aren't you announced?
Aaron makes a great point. What I've seen in
Don't
this...
say that on record.
That's okay. No, he actually stole my thunder, but I wasn't going to say that.
This is a theme for the
what
podcast.
what I really like about this cycle is that everyone looking at both statewide races as well as legislative races, where I'm spending most of my time these days, people are being very cautious and considerate about what they're doing. To Aaron's point, they're thinking about, what does this do to my life? What is my positive effect on the party? How can I help the party? Am I a good fit for this race? Am I a legitimate candidate? I see people going down that checklist to determine whether or not they believe it's worth jumping into a particular campaign or not. And I think that's a good thing for the party.
There was an announcement, as Aaron mentioned, of a candidate for governor that nobody knows. I mean, that's what you want to avoid.
He doesn't even have a running mate.
Yeah.
I mean, his campaign manager's in Missouri. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He probably want to make the ballot.
Yeah.
But think about this. To be able to run in Illinois for statewide, just to get off the ground, you need $500,000 to $1 million. And that doesn't get you anything, right? You can run for state rep and spend $3 million.
Might get your name on the ballot.
Might get your name on the ballot. But besides that, look at all the people that are going to be here today and tomorrow. Figure about half of them are going to start shooting arrows into your back immediately. I don't really care. I brought arrows in when I walked in here today. But those are the things that candidates like myself are thinking about, that checklist of doing it.
Sure.
And then if I decide to do it, I'm running full steam. I'm not stopping. I got stop and full go. Those are the two speeds that I have. Collin, you and I started this thing together 15 years ago. This is what we're doing.
There's no in between.
There is no in between. But I think that's what we need. And you see all the other vanity candidates that are walking around signing my petition. I'm like,
again,
I'll sign your petition, but you're maybe not going to make the ballot.
But
I mean, I do like the intentionality. Don is right. As much as there's two sides of this coin, I am very frustrated that we don't have candidates and people aren't stepping up. But on the other side, there is that intentionality that I do like. It's a little bit like, sort of our generation of younger adults who are being more intentional about marriage, where our marriage rate is lower, but our divorce rate is way lower. We're being more intentional about it. So there is a positive to the intentionality. But as Chris said, petitions started being passed last week. The time for intentionality is done. We need some friggin' candidates. So I'm glad to see at least we've got a little bit of movement. All right, you guys good? Michael's very quiet this week. You good? All right.
Let's get some candidates.
Well, let's talk. Don said that his focus was more on legislative races, and I'll be honest. The biggest races in Illinois are likely going to be mostly legislative races. We've got a number of state Senate races, both holds and pickups. We've got state House races. The fights in Illinois are really going to be at that state level. And so let's talk about some of those races. Obviously, I know, Don, I'll start with you on this one. That's been a lot of your focus. Sure. If we don't at least hold where we are in the state legislature, let alone pick up some ground, we're going to be in trouble. Because it's not enough to win the governor's mansion if we're still in the superminority in the House and Senate. The governor's mansion will be useless to us. We saw that during the Rauner era. Whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him, he couldn't do anything because Republicans couldn't back him up in the Capitol. And so we have got to, at minimum, hold where we are, let alone start picking up some seats over the next 3 cycles. And I know there's a lot of work going in to make that happen.
So I think, and I'll speak to the Senate because that's what I know best. I think our 4 targets are going to be the 4 suburban seats that Republicans currently hold. I think there's one Democrat that's come out in my race who no one knows. John Curran will probably have a race. Seth Lewis.
Nobody, but likely it'll happen.
Correct. Seth Lewis will probably have a race. Darby Hills, we think, is probably the number 1 target up in Barrington.
She's already got the beat in that race.
She is very sharp. She is very savvy. She's going to surprise a lot of people in this campaign.
Whoever appointed her did a great job.
I couldn't agree more. It was uphill for her, but she got it done.
Right.
And then, of course, you got Craig Wilcox up in McHenry County, Bloody Red District. He'll be safe. Those are our.
But there are some potential pickups. You've got Turner is a bit vulnerable in the Springfield area. Halpin, we've got the candidate who's running against Halpin in the room, who's announcing who's going to run against Mike Halpin. And he's a little bit vulnerable, but especially his vote on transit and on some of the other really make him vulnerable. And so you're right. We were certainly going to be playing some defense in the Senate.
We're going to have to educate those candidates to what those Democrat voting records look like. To Aaron's point, they got to get in there and punch.
Yep.
This is what this guy did to the people who live in this district.
I mean, listen, Turner's been vulnerable for a bit. McClure was on our podcast. He's very pumped, supposedly. There's some candidate here, but I mean, Turner is in her 70s. Like, there is absolutely an opportunity there. And Halpin has made some votes that he's going to regret. I mean, yes, we absolutely have 4 really tough holds. But if we're not also fighting to pick up some seats, we're not going to come out ahead. And
we think Chris Belton, Metro East, could be a viable race. Doris Turner. Halpin, out in the Quad Cities. There are some opportunities that we can
the Democrats did a great job of gerrymandering Illinois, which we talked about earlier, but they did such a great job that a lot of our Republicans are pretty well insulated because they had to hide 45% of the Illinois population somewhere, right? Like you mentioned, several of those races touch Cook County, so I'm intimately familiar with them. Darby Hills is in Collin and I's area. She's done a great job. She's raised over $600,000. I think there's a lot more to come over there. I think you're looking at John Kern, our Senate leader. I mean, he's got to have to Shakir, half to DuPage, a little bit of Will County. I mean, we certainly have some strong ones to hold. But I think that as a whole in our party, even if we don't pick any up, and I know everyone says we need to pick up seats, if we can hold our 18 and our 40, I still think that's winning this cycle.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be a tougher cycle. We talked about that our gains were more possible last cycle. We missed that opportunity. It's frustrating, but it's the reality. This cycle, yes, a win is probably lose no seats, but we still got to look at those opportunities and see where there's pickups. On the House side, we know in 76, we've got Liz Bishop running again, and we can absolutely beat Briel in that race. She is a flaming liberal, a super progressive. We can beat her for sure. I think Suzanne Ness is absolutely vulnerable in 66. There's definitely
by 4 points last cycle.
And there are definitely opportunities for us.
Challenges too. I mean, you got, what I said earlier. I'm like, if you start seeing Democratic primaries, they got 3 or 4 candidates, they can smell blood in the water. And if you look at Martin McLaughlin over there in 52, you can see that there's 3 candidates. I think there might be a 4th that are lining up in that Democratic primary because he only won by 43 votes and raised $160,000 in the last cycle. I think that's a target. That one, if you look at 51, it's an open seat. Nabila Saeed has decided to run for Senate in that cycle. That is going to be a race because if we win that, if we do strong in that area, we can hold Marty McLaughlin, we can pick up 51, and then guess what? If we do those 2 things, Darby Hills has a much better chance of staying in the Senate unless we lose those seats.
Yeah, and I know at least the first announced candidate for 51 is just as progressive as Nabila Saeed and doesn't have the people skills, doesn't have the same.
Nabila Saeed deserted her. She's no longer a campaign manager and endorsed the other state rep along with 2 other state representatives, an Asian lady down by the Uptown area.
And in 51 now there's another gentleman who supposedly is announcing, so they're going to have a bloody primary in 51. Tossie looks like she's going to announce she's going to run on the Republican
side. Tossie announced yesterday she's going to have a primary. There'll be a primary race in 51 on the Republican side because we think that there's an opportunity. That is news right here in Smoke-Filled Room that we're going to pick that up. Not that I follow all this stuff. Not that I'm paying attention or anything.
51, I have said for a long time, Chris doesn't believe me. But Chris is wrong all the time. 51. This is the thing Chris doesn't look at. You see, he just looks at the partisan races and says it's out of play, and I get it. But when you look, he hates it when I say this, but I'm right. When you look at the progressive tax, that tells me that that tells me how voters vote on fiscal issues. And when you look at districts like 51 and 52 and some of these other districts, they vote deep blue on federal races, on state races, but they voted the progressive tax down by significant margin. That means they are fiscally responsible voters.
Okay, sure. Ask them what their stance on abortion is, Collin. Ask them what their stance on immigration is, Collin.
Voted it down, but we also had $50 million from Ken Griffin pushing our side of the aisle. If we were $50 million short on that race, we would all be having a progressive tax right now.
And that hasn't gone away. There was a resolution filed this spring by Rob Martwick to reestablish the progressive tax.
The Democrat who went out to NCSL and said a millionaire's tax is the solution.
I didn't catch that.
So there was a Democrat who went to NCSL last week. Terry Bryant is here, she can tell us, who saw that one of the Democrats who was there went to a session and found that like Massachusetts or someone did a millionaire's tax, and that's how they saved their transit. And so that was Madigan's solution, was a millionaire's
tax. 2 weeks of the millionaires leave, like Ken Griffin and all the rest of them leave.
To Don's point, whether it's the progressive tax or the millionaire's tax, this thing ain't going away.
Absolutely.
No.
Okay, Collin, so when you're advocating for the vote no side of that referendum, you can certainly win the 51st House district. You go knocking on doors in Palatine or Lake Zurich, and I'm sure you
at all.
maybe a point if you directly tie it to the state representative, but that state representative, they're probably not going to touch the referendum.
Oh, they will. Oh, they will.
Let me tell you a couple of things. When Chris Boss had that district, and I really like Chris, he knocked on about 10% of the doors. And Nabila Saeed, I don't care for her voting record, but she knocked on every door twice.
She didn't have a job.
And she didn't have a job. Then she did it
Makes
again.
it easy. Live in your parents' basement.
That's
you can
right.
knock on doors all day.
We didn't lose that on policy. We
months
got
out of
outworked in that
college.
district. Tom Morrison was our state representative, and he was part of the right than Chris Boss or any of the other ones, but he knocked and worked and made an argument that he was going to be the stopgats against Democrats in Springfield, and he continued to win. If you go out there and deploy a real game plan out on the street, and you have a candidate that's willing to give up their time, their treasure, and their talent to go knock on doors and outwork the other candidate, that will outprove anything. I don't care how many times you mail at them. You knock the door and make a personal connection and relationship that's worth more than $15 or $20 in ad spend on that same voter.
In that district, you're going to make up 12, 13 points. In this midterm, you're going to make up 12, 13 points.
Because you don't know Nabila Saeed that she went to Frem High School and she went over to Berkeley. I know these
people don't understand. For those of us who have lived there, Palatine was deep red until the last 6 years.
Because we haven't been working it. I mean, we've lost all our Cook County Commissioner spots in 18, and the funding dropped. I mean, there's multiple issues to say, but Chris, I love you to death. I love your energy and excitement. You're certainly handsome, but you're 100% wrong on this issue.
And you're going to make a great state controller.
Yeah. If you make the ballot.
You will. All right, let's go to the last topic. If only because I want to let my buddy Michael Butler actually speak, because the guys over here kind of mute. We've got to talk even lower on the ballot. Our local races tend to get ignored. Our county races, whether it's county-wide or county board races, judicial races. I know in the Metro East area we have made tremendous gains, and I know there's more to come, but I want Michael to sort of speak to, we can't get lost on just the statewide, on just the legislative races. We've got to be fighting for county clerk races. If you believe that there's fraud in our elections, then you should be getting off your butt and running for county clerk. If you believe in changing the property taxes, then a county office is going to have a bigger impact on your property taxes than any of these other. But in this next election, your county offices has the most impact, and so we can't ignore further down the ballot. Michael, tell us, is there excitement, is there hope down ballot for these local races?
Yeah, I think there absolutely is. We've got a lot in the Metro East, some big races, some judicial races, county board races, sheriff, clerk. People are excited about those. You look at the numbers from 4 years ago, and like in St. Clair County in particular, how close we were to flipping some of those countywide seats. And it doesn't seem like there's a heck of a lot of excitement on the Democratic side. I know they've been having a hard time recruiting candidates. The Democrat chair in Madison County did an interview with the newspaper last week and said that they might have 2 countywide candidates, that the rest would be unopposed. So we're making strides. We're going to continue to lean into that and see what we can do.
And I know down ballot, even in Will County, like these are some of those areas where working class voters are absolutely open to a Republican message.
Yeah, Will County moved 7 to 8 points to the right in 2024, and actually Trump almost pulled the entire Republican countywide slate over the finish line with them. But Will County is going to be interesting. We're going to have a couple countywide primaries. We're going to try and hold the regional office of education and the.
I hear a rumor that we're going to have a great treasurer candidate.
Well, yeah, it could be coming soon, everybody. But we're trying to hold a couple spots, trying to keep the county board at a 50-50 split. So it's going to be an interesting race in Will County. DuPage County, I don't know what's going on there. Somebody from DuPage maybe can answer that question. I can't. Yeah, Abby left. Said she knew it was coming at some point, but in Will County and in St. Clair County, the working class coalition, the Republican Party, is moving forward.
Yeah, you're not talking about the elephant in the room, minus the pun. Cook County is where it's at, right? That's where the action is happening. That is where all the fraud, the waste, and the corruption is hiding. And I can tell you from the Cook County standpoint, we're trying to fill as many of our suburban Cook County commissioner districts that we can.
Kevin Morrison
running for the 8th congressional. Of course, it gives us an opportunity. His chief of staff is running on the Democratic side. Has consolidated all the township support, which is about 6 people, right? All of that nonsense, right? It's a total joke, right? But at the end of the day, we're fighting over here for a postage stamp of space, every little bit and every little inch that we can. We're excited about the opportunity for our state legislatures and a couple of our congressionals. We have Jennifer Davis, who's running for Congress in the 8th. We haven't really talked about it. I think she's going to be an amazing candidate. We're getting rid of fried rice. If you get that joke, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a lot that we're doing out here. But at the end of the day, what we need is to get more energized and energetic people that want to do good, that don't want to just take selfies and show up to bars and Lincoln Day dinners. I'm looking for troops. I'm looking for people that want to be a part of a movement and get involved and get excited.
I want to do a bonus topic before our battery dies, because I've got Don here, and we want to talk the Chicago Bears. We're not going to let the Packers fan over here speak at all, but there's a significant amount. Well, true. There's a significant amount of hypocrisy by the Democrats on this issue of the Bears potentially moving to Arlington Heights, and I know Don and I a little bit want to talk about it. So for a couple minutes, let's jump in. What are your thoughts on this?
So I was reading Cam Buckner's comments. Cam's a great guy. He's been a great legislative colleague on the other side of the aisle in the House for me. But he was in the paper again today with a big op-ed about, Illinois taxpayers should not be subsidizing a multi-billion-dollar privately owned corporation. The issue, if they go to Arlington Heights, is going to be infrastructure. Route 53 is already falling apart and needs to be totally reconstructed. The Bears will need additional ingress and egress to get people in and out of the place. There's a metro station that'll need to be expanded.
For 14.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Don't do like the Sears Center.
Yeah, I think the Democrats are starting to attempt to build a case why the legislature should not support this project. The state of Illinois has the responsibility to provide significant, sufficient infrastructure to any major economic development project in this state. I don't care if it's a sports stadium, a multi-billion-dollar manufacturing facility, another Oak Brook shopping mall that draws hundreds of thousands of people a year. There's a responsibility to provide infrastructure across the entire state, regardless of the type of project being spent. If the state is going to be asked to provide infrastructure improvements for that particular private development, that money is being invested on behalf of the residents of Illinois. It is not being invested on behalf of the Chicago Bears. Because if they build a stadium and the roads are wrecked and people can't get in and out of it, they're not going to blame the Chicago Bears for that. They're going to blame the state of Illinois.
They're not looking for help building the stadium. They will pay for that. But and they want to build a whole complex. I mean, what's not talked about enough, for those of us who live in the suburbs, it is boring as hell. There is nothing for us to go do unless we want to
go down there and get shot at on your way to the game.
But that's the problem, is we can't go into the city. Like, I love the Field Museum, I love the Shed, but you have to go all the way into the city for those. To have an entertainment and a complex with restaurants and options to go to, this could bring so much vitality to the region. But the problem is J.B. Pritzker is only interested in those developments from these private corporations that get 50 jobs and donate to his campaign, but to actually invest in Illinois businesses, he's not interested.
I think J.B. Pritzker is trying to find a way how he can make this happen and take credit for it. Everyone found out last spring through some FOIA requests that he's already been paying consultants to advise the administration on how to deal with the Bear situation from a statewide standpoint. I mean, that came out late in the session, but it's in the back of his mind. Don't let him kid you.
There's definitely opportunity here. I'm glad the Bears have finally started to focus on a plan. Now they need to seriously up their game in the Capitol, because it's been pathetic. But there is huge opportunity here, not just for the Bears, but for the whole region.
Well, it's because, Collin, you and I only live a mile and a half away from it. I'm all about going to a Bears game, and every time I buy season tickets.
Door Strategies will have a booth. We will have a box. Yeah.
That's where my raise next year is going. Is to the booth at the new Bear Stadium.
DeWitte's a point, though. I don't want the Bears to come if I gotta wait 2 hours to get home because the infrastructure's not there.
A quarter mile down the road.
Right, quarter down the road. I gotta wait 2 hours to get through. Because it's not just the Bears. It's when Taylor Swift comes into town. It's when Flo Rida. It's when you know
Del Mar was right in the mosh pit for T Swifty, 100%. Yeah.
I don't think they mosh at the Taylor Swift show, Collin. That's a different type of show that we go to.
So let's close this down. We'll let our people do closing comments like we always do. We'll start with our team over here. Michael, Michael, since you were apparently asleep at the wheel this week, you get to go first.
No, I think it's good to be here at the State Fair. Hope to see everybody tomorrow. Get your writing hand ready because it's petition season.
All right, short and sweet. Chris.
Everybody's going to make fun of me this episode because I'm wearing a hat, I'm wearing shorts, I'm wearing a polo, everyone else is dressed really nice. Well, I want to say I'm the smart one. I've been sitting in the sun for an hour and a half while all these guys are in their long sleeves and their long pants. That's not this guy. I'm still boiling to death over here. But you know what? The future is so bright that I'm going to need sunglasses to see it for the state of Illinois. My boy Tommy Troy right over there, the next comptroller of the state of Illinois if I'm not it. That's right. Everybody have a wonderful state fair. And if you're watching this at home, everyone have a great weekend. God bless you and good night.
All right, Aaron, your final thoughts?
My final thought is this. I'm going back to a topic that I talked about earlier today. We have an opportunity to make generational change here in Illinois. And it starts with great candidates, and it starts with a working program for everybody in Illinois, not just the millionaires and billionaires, but everybody all the way down. And I think it's time for us as the Illinois grassroots to start telling the billionaires and millionaires on both sides of the aisle that they don't get to handpick our candidates. It is up to us, the electorate in the Republican primary, to pick our candidates, not where the funding goes. And thank you for having me.
Glad to have you. Don DeWitte, thanks for coming.
So I'm very encouraged by this election cycle. I'm looking forward to a big crowd at the fairgrounds tomorrow. Hopefully this year's crowd will be bigger than last year's, because last year's was much bigger than the year before. We've got great candidates giving all of these races very serious consideration. I think we're going to end up with a great ticket, Collin, and I think we're going to be very successful in this election cycle.
I like your hope. We need hope, that's for sure, in the Republican Party. This has been a smokeless episode of the Smoke-Filled Room, though the reality is everyone keeps looking over at me because I'm the guy who brings the humidor. I've got several $100s worth of cigars that all these freeloaders are all going to enjoy at the end of the day. But here's what I want to leave you with. If you're not willing to fight for Illinois for yourself, and you're not willing to fight for Illinois for your kids and grandkids, I look at this room full of people. There is a reason to fight for this state. You have people who have made the trek to Springfield to fight for Illinois, for the state they grew up in, the state they care about. If you're not willing to step up for that, then honestly, go move to Florida, get the hell out of the way. Please, it is time to step up and fight for the state we live in. If you're willing to do it, let's go. I know everybody up here is ready to fight with you. Let's go fight, let's go win. Next week, you'll be back in the smoke-filled room. In the meantime, let's go out there and get some wins.